Welcome back to TPL Media, ladies and gentlemen. I am little Bradie Whetham, and I'm sitting down today crunching the numbers of extortion in Ontario. Now, before I started the day, I didn't know anything about the extortion problems that are going in Ontario, but I spent the past 2 hours crunching this down, looking at these numbers, and oh my goodness, it seems like we have a bit of a problem here. To discuss this with me is our local journalist, Jeremy Gramaldi from TPL Media. Thanks, Jeremy, for coming in to let me ask some questions about extortion in Ontario.
Always glad to be here.
Well, okay. Extortion is exploding in Ontario, especially the GTA. It seems to be Brampton and Peel Region seem to be the biggest problems. Before I open up and start asking you crazy questions from some of these facts I have in front of me, what do you know about the rise of extortion in Ontario? And is the number 500% increase since 2012? Is that a true number?
I don't know that exact number, but I'm sure it's accurate. The numbers have exploded for sure.
Okay.
In part because there was almost no extortion prior to this issue coming to light. So, you may have heard of extortion back in the day, where mobsters go to local stores and say, hey, you need protection? I'll give you protection. You just got to pay me. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of one of those tricks of organized crime where you're actually protecting themselves, the business owners from themselves.
So it's the lay down or stay down mentality.
Yeah. So like pay us or you're going to need protection. If you do pay us, then you don't need protection. Mm-hmm. Protection against who? That's the question. So that's the traditional type of extortion that we've seen or been aware of. It dwindled down to almost zero by the time before COVID. At some point in 2023, I believe, Justin Trudeau stood up in the House of Commons and told the country that there's credible information that India was involved in a murder of a Sikh activist. And after that, things kind of went cockeyed in terms of relations with India.
Okay.
And that's when the RCMP identified that the extortions began. And since then, it's blown up. Now, nobody really knows if it's all down to one gang, which is what some people believe, or if there's copycats out there who have seen this Lawrence Bishnoi gang in India have success, and they're now picking up the torch and doing it themselves and claiming that they're from the Lawrence Bishnoi gang.
So it's almost like they paved the way, and then that there's a potential that a whole bunch of other groups, maybe loose groups or maybe heavily structured, everything in between, kind of seen this, and maybe they've latched onto it now. This is why we're seeing the crazy increase. Because,
possibly.
Jeremy, there's 400 cases in 1 year reported as of last year.
Yeah. Brampton is the home of extortion in Ontario. It's also going on out in BC, out in Alberta, in Surrey and Edmonton. But in Ontario, it's become quite a problem. Now, the implication by the statement by the RCMP that the extortion began after Justin Trudeau stood up in the House of Commons and said these comments is that the Indian government is somehow involved.
Okay.
And allegedly using Lawrence Bishnoi as a proxy to commit these crimes from India. Now, that's where we don't know what's happening in terms of people on the ground here, because they could either be working for Lawrence Bishnoi directly or working for themselves and using Lawrence Bishnoi as a cover for their activities.
Well, City News in Toronto specifically said that there's 190 targeted businesses that got this last year. So these are small businesses. These aren't just massive corporations that are being extorted. These are small businesses. And you did say Brampton and Peel Region seem to be the problem around here in the GTA in Ontario. And the demands for cash seem to be as low as $50K all the way up to $500,000. So if you're a small business and somebody's trying to extort $500K out of you, that's it. You're done.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of different reactions to this. We've seen people go underground, close their businesses, move out of their homes, move into hotels. We've seen, allegedly, from people I've spoken to, we've seen people pay. People pay.
Yeah.
And the result of that has been twofold. Either either the payment works and the threats stop, or the payments go through and 6 months later the threats begin again because they know they have a willing party.
Well, there's been everything from arson to drive-bys to physical shootings. We're seeing a little bit of everything. So they're starting from threats, family members, businesses, et cetera, and they're actually turning real. So these people that they're not answering or they're brushing this off. It sounds like they're actually getting some sort of retaliation from these people. These aren't just false threats. These aren't just falling flat. They're actually following through with it. And the reports from City News is that many victims aren't reporting this because they're immigrants that don't want to go back home or put a spotlight on them. They're just trying to get by. So that could be another reason why some of these reports may actually be lower than what's being reported.
Yeah. Oh, people don't often report extortion because they don't trust the police. A lot of them are foreigners, or at least immigrants. Either they don't trust the police, they want the problem to just go away. They want to deal with it themselves. They don't want to escalate things. They want to ignore the problem, and the threats remain. Now, action is often taken in terms of shootings and arson. They're taken a small majority of the time.
Okay.
A small minority of the time, but they are still happening. And the whole purpose of threats is to scare people. The purpose of carrying out the threats is to show people that, hey, we're not joking around. And that's why news reports are so important here, because the fear reverberates. Once you put out a news report about a threat being actualized and someone's home being shot or an arson, everyone in the community finds out and they realize that these guys aren't joking around. So if you just had a bunch of threats without action, the issue may subside because people don't believe that anything's going to happen to them. But there have been shootings, there's been arsons, there's been a couple of murders that have been tied to this. We're unaware if it's directly tied or not, but there has been 1 or 2 murders associated to extortion and threats.
Now, I'm nowhere near an expert on this matter of these situations. I'm a 2-hour expert, like I told you at the beginning of the show. In your opinion, how organized is this? Do you think this is more just filling in of loose groups, or do we think that this is more of a structured kind of almost a business in itself?
Again, the RCMP is not completely aware. One thing that we know is that it started in one way. It's evolved a lot. So, some people believe it's the Indian government that's doing this to get back at people that want to separate Punjab from India.
Okay.
Some people think it's threats against Sikhs. Some people believe it's local players that are doing this after threats came from India originally. So we don't really know what's happening. What we can do is guess, speculate, estimate. We can work off the numbers to see that, yes, the threats are often coming from another country. And that's part of the reason why WhatsApp is so popular in terms of these extortions.
Yeah.
We also know that the problem isn't going away. Even now that Canada has tried to normalize relations with India, the problem persists. We're going to see what happens next. And we also know that a lot of the times it's Sikhs being targeted.
Why do you think that is?
Well, there's a separation movement going on in India, Sikh separation movement in India, and a lot of people
and that's carrying over here.
Yeah, the fights in the homeland have come to Canada. India says that Canada is harboring Sikh terrorists. A lot of Sikhs say that we're doing peaceful activities, and
there's probably truth to both of those statements, right?
Those are really hard to talk about because there is such a deep history involved in this. Just like, a lot of us are immigrants. All our parents have fights from the home country that have gone back centuries, and so it's difficult to talk about in terms of this. But we do know that the Canadian government, the RCMP, believe that this is international criminality, which I don't know if it's right in any no matter what's gone on in the background.
Well, I'll tell you, there was, as of last year, there were 70 removal orders issued, right, for these targets, and 35 deportations already were carried out, and that's reported by City News again. That seems very low.
Yeah,
right, like it's 35. So yes, half. That's great. That we had 70 reported cases, and we got out with 35 of them, and they've been deported. That means they're out of the country. We don't have to worry about this problem anymore. But it does seem very low if we're talking about how high these numbers are rising.
It's interesting because the Bishnoi gang was recently deemed a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
So that allows the RCMP to take extra steps when investigating. But extortion, that's what makes it such a sort of interesting crime, is that extortion is very difficult to investigate.
Yep.
And to deport someone, you need evidence. Evidence is hard to gather. It's very expensive. It's difficult to gather. It's also difficult to point the finger at one person. So that's why I would suggest that there's so few that are being deported, is because it's hard to identify the targets.
Well, and I have a few stats here that too will add to that as to why this may be a little bit harder than most people would think. Now, the authorities are starting to treat extortion not just as a crime anymore. This is a national security threat, like you said. Mm-hmm. And this is more than just an organized crime issue. This is becoming an actual threat. Law enforcement challenges. Here's the big challenges. It takes digital access to get digital access takes 20 to 45 days for the local authority. That means 45 days of digging on WhatsApp to be able to get access to it, to be able to open up the encryption, et cetera, et cetera. Criminals are operating instantly within a day or two, which means they're doing an extortion deal within a day or two. So if it takes us 20 to 45 days to catch up to that, it seems like the number of how this is being applied is a lot faster. Like we're getting, how long is it takes us? Let's say it's just 10 times and it's 20 days.
Yeah.
They're getting 2 of these things done, every 10 days, and we're still trying to figure out what happened on the first day.
Well, that is a big part of the problem. I've spoken to experts that have talked a bit about policing. And this is a really interesting conversation because you don't think about policing in this way. But when you do think about it, you kind of realize that he's got a point. Canadian police are trained to show up to someone's house and investigate a domestic. Okay. Show up to someone's house and investigate an assault. Show up to someone's house and investigate an arson. They're not trained to show up to someone's house and
track down an international extortion expert. Yeah,
exactly. I know. Yeah. They're not trained to get a warrant to search WhatsApp.
This is like we're getting into almost RCMP CSIS territory.
That's it, and that's part of the reason it was deemed a terrorist organization, so that they could do those things. But that's why a lot of people have criticized the police for being slow. In terms of investigating, in terms of deeming it a serious problem, in terms of allowing it to burgeon. But you also have to understand that they have limits. A street cop has limits in terms of what he can do.
Well, and then, we hear a lot about the laws changing when it comes to privacy in Canada, right? And every bill under the sun underneath C. A lot of people are complaining, saying, we don't want access to our text messages and our online social media. We don't think the government should be involved in that. But with C2, it forces telecom companies to provide data within 24 hours now, right? With this new bill that's been passed. This will probably help. So yes, we're looking at it as civilians saying, oh my goodness, all my stuff's going to be read. But this is also helping the authorities track down extortion assholes, and for lack of a better term, and all these other scammers a lot quicker than they had the ability to do before. What's your opinion on that? Because I don't think there's a perfect answer for that.
It's a difficult topic, but I know, my relatives of mine have a landline, and they get, if they get 30 calls a day, 29 of them are from scammers from other countries. Yeah. So, you have it's all a balance, and allowing people to snoop on international groups like this. Is that worth us giving up a bit of our civil rights? I don't really know. It's a difficult question to ask, But I would say that the government has got it right in the past, and hopefully they get it right again.
Well, I have an interesting report from the Times of India, and we were talking about the Indian government. They think that this is insider corruption, that this is how this is happening. They reported that. They think that this is police services or whoever is part of this actual problem. What's your take on that? Like, I know we've seen the GTA, the police scandal that went on with that. I don't know if that ties to this or not. But it does seem like we do have a problem with some of our internal authorities being compromised.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that, you know, what we saw with some of that police action was the police providing information to the underworld.
Yeah.
And we didn't see police actually committing the crimes themselves in terms of the violence or going to people's homes.
Which I don't think they would be. That's
a whole nother level of
that's
corruption.
America's dumbest criminals, Canadians' dumbest criminals.
That's something you see in sort of banana republics.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're at that level. You know, the Indian government, there's a lot of evidence that they are involved, that the RCMP believe that they're involved, and they're trying to fight these allegations. Some of their comments hold water, some of them don't, or shouldn't say hold water. I said may seem to hold water, and some of them don't. I would put that claim in the latter.
Okay. Now, what do you think would be so? Okay, one of the things are these shootings and arsons and things that are happening. Yes, they're targeted. But when does this become an actual public safety concern? Do you think we're actually going to get to the point where the average civilian that's not worried about being extorted still has to worry about the danger and the violence that surrounds it?
So far, it's been, as I said, it's been largely contained to the Sikh and Indian community, like newcomers often. So it hasn't spread. I think it will most likely stay within that community unless different criminal groups get ideas and start latching on to it. I would say that the only threat that regular citizens, I shouldn't call it regular citizens, I would say the only threat that people outside of those communities may face is that we've seen videos where guys are showing up at homes and from the bottom of the driveway just letting off a whole magazine of gunshots at a home. I've interviewed people who've had bullets pierce through their homes and come out the back. So in terms of a public violence threat, I would say that's the biggest threat that people may face, is that a bullet may fly somewhere and an innocent bystander could get hit. In terms of them being threatened, it seems as though all of this is very calculated and targeted. Okay. So I don't think there's a great threat of it going beyond the current borders of their focus on the current people, but never say never. And also it's proving to be very difficult to investigate and maybe very lucrative. So you really don't know. And that's the thing about crime, is that every action has a reaction. If other crime groups see this and say, hey, we could make money this way as well, it could become a new trend. It hasn't been historically, but you never know.
Now, I'll ask you a question, and maybe it's just going to be based off of your opinion, and you may have knowledge about it, maybe you don't, but what do you know about this new extortion task force that's being created by the GTA police? Is this to counterbalance what you said, just to give better training to cops that wouldn't normally have this type of training? Do you know anything about that group?
I do know some of it. It's Peel Regional Police. What they've done is as opposed to what happened in BC is, you know, when something new comes up, you create a task force when you don't want it to spiral out of control. And a lot of people have said that's what's happened in BC. You want to identify which crimes have to do with this type of extortion and which crimes don't. And you want to make sure that if this type of crime has been implicated in a certain crime report, you want to know that, you want to investigate it with all the others. So you want to sort of sort through all the crimes and make sure you're catching all the appropriate ones. And the purpose of that is that it doesn't spiral out of control, because we've seen it grow 500%. We've seen 400 in a year, whereas opposed to prior to this, the incident rate was negligible. That could be less than 5%. So task force do well to bring down big organized groups who are often involved, and they also they do a good job of getting criminals that are involved in other crimes that are latching onto this. So I've been to press conferences at Peel Police where they said, "Oh, we started investigating this extortion crime, and then we found it's tied to the tow trucks." And then when we investigated the tow trucks, we found insurance fraud, we found drug dealing. So you do see how one crime can fund another. And the more success these organized groups have, the more crime they get into, and the worse our society becomes as a result.
So let's say we had somebody watching from the Brampton or Peel region, and they're a small business owner or a medium-sized, whatever size business owner, and they're starting to find themselves in the middle of an extortion case. Mm-hmm. What did they do? Like, where did they go, Jeremy?
I would say go directly to the task force at
on the horn
at
right?
Peel Regional Police. Yeah. I mean, I think what happens is it's kind of like fraud. When you get defrauded, the last thing you want to do is tell anyone, because you look like an idiot. You look like you're not safe to be around. You look like you're endangering your family.
There's some embarrassment and pride issues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So people avoid it. This issue now, it's hit the headlines because it's become such a big deal. I wouldn't take it as a joke or as if it's going to stop.
Yeah,
I think they've proven that there's real violence behind this and that it's not going to stop.
Well, what's your final thoughts on extortion in Ontario? Do you think this is going to get better? Are we going to see this 500% increase drop down with the implement of things like the extortion task force, with the RCMP and the government taking a stronger look at this under a magnifying glass? Do you think that this is going to go upward as in terms of positive, and this is going to be cleared out over the next few years, or is this going to get worse and worse in your opinion?
I personally think it's going to get better. Mark Carney's taken a stance on this where he wants to normalize relations that were hurt after the Trudeau comments with India. He wants to invite Modi to Canada, which has come under a lot of criticism as racist by a lot of people. But I think doing that would allow for, I'm not saying that the Indian government's involved. What I'm saying is that the Indian government will have extra pressure on them to actually do something about it, and I think it will improve. But it's left scars, and so when there's a lot of hurt feelings and there's a lot of people being cast in certain groups, there's a possibility of it going wrong. So, I'm speaking optimistically, but that should not be taken as a sign that I expect things to get better. I'm hopeful, but a lot of damage has been done. So,
well, Jeremy, you just took me from a 2-hour expert to a lifetime expert on extortion in Ontario. Your vast knowledge of these your vast knowledge that is brought into these discussions is not underappreciated. We appreciate everything you do here. Thank you for schooling me on the extortion issues in Ontario. And if you're watching on YouTube, Podcastville, wherever it is, Spotify, please subscribe or check out tplmedia.ca for more shows like this. Or you can download the app at True Patriot Love, anywhere you download apps. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you soon.